Breaking Hayes Fawcett, breaking. Former Miami of Ohio running back Rashad Amos has flipped his transfer commitment from Colorado to Ole Miss, he tells On3 Sports.
Hayes did it wrong. What he should have said is former South Carolina and Miami of Ohio running back and former Mississippi State and Colorado commit has committed to Ole Miss. That's what he should have said.
In 2023 at Miami of Ohio, Rashad Amos rushed for 1,075 yards and 13 touchdowns. I feel like we've said those numbers on this program before. He will have 2 years of eligibility remaining. There was a time when Brian Haydad knew those numbers by heart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Over 1,000-yard rusher. Had 13 touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
So,
unlike a lot of people on Twitter, I will not flip my opinion of him.
It's a good back. I mean, it's a good pickup for Ole Miss, and they needed somebody like him because
how the turntables.
Parrish and Bentley are.
Did I do it right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That is exactly right. Parrish and Bentley are kind of the same guy, relatively speaking. Amos is more of a bruiser, and they needed the physicality in the backfield. But the question was, okay, wait a minute, why is
we're making the whole plane out of running backs here?
Yeah, why is Amos going to Ole Miss? Well, my first thought was, that may not be great news for Diggs. Maybe he's not going to be able to make it back this season. Maybe that's what it is. Turns out, apparently not. Neil McCready was first on this. The New Mexico transfer that committed to Ole Miss a few weeks ago, Jakori Merritt, according to Neil, is out of eligibility. Now, the player himself has taken to social media to say that is not true. Now, I don't know why he possibly could think that is the case, because if you look at his stats and game logs, he has played 5 years of college football in which he has played 5 or more games in all 5 of those years. On paper, he didn't have any eligibility. I mean, he has exhausted his eligibility. The other side of that is, if that's the case, if he really is not able to play this year, that stinks. Somebody at New Mexico, I assume, failed him along the way, telling him that he had more eligibility left, where instead of going through the draft process, going to an all-star game, having a pro day, getting evaluated, he was expecting to play college football again, hit the transfer portal, did the portal thing, ended up committing to Ole Miss. Now he can't play, and he is SOL he's SOL when it comes to playing in the NFL. That stinks for him, but he is refuting that claim. But the stats on the internet say that he played in 5 games and 5 years of college football, which means you can't play anymore.
This feels like we're one of those times where Haydad should say, if only there was a device.
Yeah. I mean, what can I? But if the stats are entered incorrectly, what can I do? I didn't watch the games.
No, that's what I'm saying. If only there was a device.
There has to be some sort of device, though. Yeah.
Someone is going to have to go back.
I need a camera.
Game by game, and prove definitively in the season where he claims he only played in 4 games and they claim he played in 5 games, one way or the other. Am I crazy for clearly there's a miscommunication here. Somebody's right, somebody's wrong. Wouldn't a player know how many games that he played in a given season?
You would think.
You'd think. Well, that's what he's saying that.
I heard earlier today, and it's grapevine stuff, nothing that I've confirmed journalistically, but I heard that Ole Miss has the 5 games. So maybe they don't, and maybe that's incorrect information, but I heard that Ole Miss has the 5 games. The eligibility thing is settled, and that's why Amos jumped on board. That could be wrong.
Hope he got a little NIL just to show up. And he got a little commitment bonus there, hopefully. Got something out of this.
I mean, the rule's pretty straightforward.
No.
And it's a pretty decent rule now. Like, we pick on rules all the time, but I think we all agreed that, okay, you can play in 4 games without losing your eligibility if you play in more than 4 games in the regular season. And that was a great, in my mind, not good, but great amendment that they made to the rule. I think it was this past year was the first time. Maybe it's been 2 years. I think this past postseason was the first year where postseason does not count toward eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
So if you play in 4 games in the regular season, you can play in the bowl game. And it does not count against your eligibility. Great addition to the rule, especially with as many opt-outs as we have in the postseason. But the rule itself's not a bad one. Playing 4 games, and then you make a decision. You, your family, your coaches ultimately make a decision. And you live with the results. I don't, I hate it for the kid if he thought he had another year of eligibility and he actually didn't, but
he still thinks he does. I mean, he's going on social media. Oh, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, okay, then he's going to have to provide the proof.
Yeah.
Which is simple enough. I mean, he's going to have to watch 12 games. Or maybe he knows the 4 games that he played in without question.
I mean, you got to prove that you didn't play in the other ones.
Well, maybe he's only got to watch 5 games, right? I mean, he's got to watch the 5 games where it claims that there were stats for him. And if there's one where it claims there were stats for him and he didn't actually play in that game, he should be able to pretty easily submit that as evidence. Say, look, I only played in 4 games. Here's the proof.
You would think. But then why, if independent of that, Ole Miss went after Amos and got him. And obviously they're going to have to pay for those services. You don't have to. Sometimes you don't have to have inside information to know what's up.
Yeah. I will give you another example of that. I don't need inside information to know that Rashad Amos's whole thing with State of, I'm upset that they're going after other running backs, wasn't accurate. Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't begrudge him going after better NIL deals if that's what he's getting. But he went from a school that was recruiting 1 other running back to a school that's got 6 on the roster now. And he's not the first choice in that group. Or 2 for sure.
All right, so I had a friend text me, and I have not independently verified this. Says one of his coaches is saying that someone else was wearing his jersey, and that's where those stats come from. But film shows that it's him in the jersey for more than 4 games. Okay.
This is fascinating.
Okay.
Like, how does that happen?
And so several of you have asked about, well, what about a COVID year? Well, yes. So the NCAA rule is you have 5 years to play 4. You can exercise a redshirt year by playing in 4 or fewer regular season games in that 5-year window. So theoretically, you could play in 4 games your first year and then 12 games in your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th years for a total of 48 games. If you played in 2020, whether you played in a league that played no games or 3 games or 10 games, that had no bearing on your eligibility. 2020 was just thrown out completely. The stats count, but the games don't count. So that's how we've had so many guys at the 6-year mark, right? So there was a redshirt year, a COVID year, and 4 years of eligibility. So that's how you get to the 6. And then there have been a few cases where you had 7th-year guys, where there were multiple red shirts, maybe a medical red shirt, an actual red shirt, a COVID year, and then 4 years of eligibility. And there are a couple of those guys that were playing in college football this past season. We are very close to closing the book on COVID eligibility being part of the equation. We're not quite there yet. So 2025 should be the last season that anybody has any remaining COVID eligibility, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Unless you have a medical red shirt that's mixed into that.
There might be a few hangers on.
But basically 2025. When we get to 2026, we won't really be talking about remaining COVID years unless it's an exception.
Yeah.
An exceptional situation. So
yeah, an ATM machine. Hot water heater.
exactly. The SEC conference.